Welcome to Mary McCorvey Experience Over Expectations podcast, which you can find on YouTube, Substack, and any place you find your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe today.
Hello, welcome to Experience Over Expectation, where we encourage you to let go of the grand plan and live on your terms. I'm Mary McCorvey. Today, I'm joined by Clare, a best-selling author and creator of the Harmony Method. Her new book, Harmony, The Frequency of True Success, invites us to align our inner truth with our outer lives so that success isn't just a scoreboard, it becomes ease and clarity and authenticity. So, Robin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. And listening to you say that, I'm thinking if we are aligned, our inner world and our outer purpose, it helps with managing expectations.
Yes, it does.
It's like the key.
We both have really great books.
That's right. That's right. That's what I'm finding too. Like I'm finding that there's so many wonderful messages out there, right? And Neil Donald Walsh, I'm sure you remember him. He wrote Conversations with God. It was like a whole series. And I was listening to him talk one time, and he said, if you walked into Barnes and Noble and there was a table in the front with 20 books that were similar to what you were writing, that's when you should write your book, because it's a message from the vibration of the universe whose time has come. And so the more people that write about it, the more that people will resonate with a specific author. Like every reader is not going to resonate with every author. That would not make any sense. And that they'll be able to hear the message that is of this time.
Yes.
And right. And so he's go write it. He goes, that's when you know you should write it, not thinking, oh, why should I write this? Somebody else wrote this. But that's when you know it's time. And so this is the book that I wanted to share today is my fifth book. It's called Harmony, The Frequency of True Success. And it came to me a while ago, but the timing wasn't right. And so again, there's that managing expectations, right? Like I knew that this book was in me. In fact, I know there's a sixth book that I will be writing. I just don't know what it is yet. But I love that because you really learn to manage expectations when you have an idea of what is required from your purpose. And you just have to let it unfold.
Tell us about Harmony. Tell us about that book.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually thinking I'm going to go back to when I first was inspired to write it. So I am what is called a sacred messenger, and I receive guidance from the spiritual realm to write. And when I first received my first book, I was neither an author or a channel of spiritual information, and I really didn't know a lot about Christianity or Judaism. It was called Messiah Within, and it was about how we are the Messiah of our own lives. And I'm like, I don't know any of these things. I don't know why you're asking me to do this. And then I realized that the reason I was being asked to do this is because what they said is that I have a big heart and that I could learn to write from the heart. Mm-hmm. And that was what they were looking for. So the other stuff they said, that's just learning how to do it. But if you can stay in your heart and write, then that's the key for this type of channeled writing. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe it was, I was driving in my car to my mentor's house, and I hear a male voice in the car say to me, commitment, mastery, service, leadership. And I'm like, cool, that's cool. Thank you so much. And I just carried on to my mentor's house. 2 weeks later, I was driving again to my mentor's house, same exact spot. I hear this male voice, commitment, mastery, service, leadership, and freedom. And I'm like, oh, even cooler. Like, Freedom is the best. Like, I don't really even know what comes after freedom, but I will say that whenever I have received guidance to write from the spiritual realm, whatever list that they give me is divisible by 3. And that was 5. And I'm like, so I don't know what could be after freedom, but this list is not divisible by 5. And then this voice started to laugh, this male voice. And he said, very good, Robin. That's because it's on the other end. And so then he said, awareness, commitment, mastery, service, leadership, and freedom. And so that's the harmony method. That is how I believe that we can align our inner world with our outer purpose by following that path. And what I've discovered is it's not just spiritual. What I have in the harmony method is this harmony method for creativity, for relationships, for health and wellness, for politics, for surviving politics, which is a big one. When I first got this information driving in the car, they shared it with me as the secret to success on your spiritual path. And that's how they shared it with me. You become aware that you're spiritual, and then you commit to learning, and then you master what the teachings are. You start to embody them, and then you share them. You start talking about them, right? Service, you start saying, hey, guess what I learned? And then leadership is when you take an active role in walking the walk. You become spirituality. Like, you become the walking example of it. And then freedom is when this inner alignment, this what you've been studying, and your outer world become one. Like, everything that you do has to vibrate on that same spiritual frequency, or you're out of alignment and you're no longer in harmony. So you start looking at your relationships differently. You start looking at your work. You start looking at your health. Am I doing everything I can to maintain this spiritual temple inside and outside? And when you do that, then you move into what I call your sovereign energy, which is the highest vibration available for us here on the earth plane, because it's almost like we're opening up to our divine nature coming in to help guide us. So we become more of a divine being in our sovereign. So we're really taking advantage of all this synchronicity, intuition, words of wisdom, Mother Nature, anything that's available to us to help guide us is more awakened when we're in our sovereign energy. So that's what I learned on my path. But the reason why I wrote this book is there's a wonderful place to visit called Kripalu in Massachusetts. And it's a yoga teaching place, but they also have wonderful transformation programs and wonderful food and lots of great yoga. And I was up there I'm also a nonprofit leader of a small nonprofit. And I was up there for nonprofit leader training. And it was the election of our last presidential election. And up there, which is very, what's the word? People are very woo and very, very much about healing the earth and what is going on and fresh foods. The majority of the people were very upset about what was the potential for our country with Trump being reelected. And I too was, and the energy up there was really, it was hard to breathe up there. People were so upset. And so I went back to my room and I said, I don't know what's going on. And I went into a meditation. And when I came in the meditation, I heard harmony. And that was what those 6 elements that I had received a few years back on my spiritual path were really the path to living in harmony. The alignment of your inner world and your outer purpose. And so I started this book in November of last year, right after the election. That's like the first sentence in the book. I'm starting this book right after this very contentious election. And now it's out now, Harmony, the frequency of true success. And Yeah, I've learned a lot writing it. That happens too. Was I couldn't really publish it until I felt I was living in that frequency. And that's actually happened on all of my books. Like I never felt like I was ready to publish them because I wasn't sure I was living them. So
Well,
here we are now.
that's a lot to unpack
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
When I listen to you, I think about what questions our viewers and listeners might have. And one of them is, how did you know you were a messenger? What does that look like?
I knew there were things that happened when I was a young person that I didn't know what they were. Even for example, when my grandmother was passing, I was working in public accounting in tax season right out of college. And I stood up and I said, I must go to New York now. I must call my family and I must go to New York now. And they're like, you can't go to New York now. And I'm like, I am. And I just got up, I put my coat on. That job didn't last very long. And I went and I called my family and I got on the train and I took the train from Hartford to New York. They all joined me. And then when we got there, my grandmother passed. And so there were little examples like that I can hear or sense, or they call it the clairvoyant, clair. I don't know the differences, but I think I have a little bit of all of them. And so when I worked in corporate America for 25 years, and when I was leaving there, I stood on my deck for almost a year and I said, how can I be of greater service to mankind? And I believe that's when I started working with the what I call the ascended masters. If there was a hierarchy in the spiritual realm, I would call them God's direct reports. And then I was approached by Yeshua to write my first book. And Yeshua is most likely known from as Jesus to most people. And that's when I said to him, I really want to help you, but I don't know how to write. I don't know how to channel. I don't know Christian. I don't know the Bible, the Christian Bible, and I really don't know the Jewish Bible either. I don't know why you want me to do this, but I learned to, as I shared earlier, to ground my energy in my heart so that I could hear what was being asked of me to write. Yeah.
Now, does Jesus speak to you personally? Is that the male voice that you hear?
I don't know. It's so funny you should ask me that because I've been thinking about that. It was so interesting. I've moved from, in my own personal journey, needing to know who's speaking to me, and I've moved it all into an energy I call the divine, which is, I think, the totality of that realm or the totality of God's realm. And everyone that's in it, including our ancestors. And so I have moved to my own journey, trying to access what is my own divine nature, because I believe that we are all part of that. And because I've always believed that, I think has opened me up to that there's no separation for me between that God's realm and his direct reports, as I said earlier. I hope that's not disrespectful, but and Gaia, the earth, like I feel very connected to the earth. I think the earth is speaking to me at times because I just believe in this concept of oneness, that we're all one. And so if you're open to that, you lift the shades up, there's so many miracles that you can see going on around you. And then the more I think that we're open to it and believe that it's not anything, it's not that it's not special, but it's not anything unusual, that opportunities arise where you'll be asked to help. And that's what I think I'm doing with my books, is helping in whatever way I can. So that's what I believe inside, and that's what I'm doing as my purpose. So I am in harmony.
That is wonderful. I'm so
Yeah,
glad to hear that.
thank you.
Do you ever hear from a female voice?
Oh, yes. My third book, Feast and Famine, I was guided to write that from a being I call Sophia. And Sophia is the divine feminine. And she has been disguised, I believe, in major religion as the Holy Spirit. And I believe that's who she is. And when she came to me, so I really think it's people see it as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I believe it's the Father, the Mother, and the Son. And so I believe that Sophia is the mother of all of us, the divinity. And so she came to me in a meditation and asked me to write this book called Feast and Famine. And oh, Mary, she was so spectacular. Like, she was in this white outfit, and then her face kept changing. Her face kept turning into every woman, every ethnicity, every color, everything. It was almost mesmerizing to the point where I almost didn't ask her what she wanted from me because I was so like, oh my God, she's incredible. And she asked me to write this book called Feast and Famine, and it's a spiritual path to recovery. And what she said is that there's only one true addiction on the planet, and that's to suffering. And then we pick our poison, which is our secondary addiction. And so in order to be in long-term recovery, you have to unveil and accept and heal what created the trauma in your life or the suffering. And so that's what that book is about. And I'm very proud of that one too. And it's funny, I launched that right maybe 5 minutes before COVID.
Oh my goodness.
And so I never really launched it. And I'm thinking, I think I need to relaunch that because I didn't give it its fair shake, although I did my own podcast on it for about a year called Hungry for Answers. And so I was in addiction to obsessive eating and bulimia for 40 years. And
goodness.
So I had to come into my own place of recovery. I'm currently in recovery now. I'm going into my 8th year next year. And funny is that when she asked me to write the book, she said, I want you to write about this concept that there's only one addiction, suffering, but I also want you to talk about your recovery. And I'm like, I'm not in recovery. I wasn't in recovery then. And she goes, you will be. And so I wrote it the first time, not in recovery. And I basically said at the end, I hope this book was helpful to you. It really wasn't helpful to me. Have a nice life. And then I'm like, I can't publish that. And so then I eventually came into recovery and I basically rewrote parts of it. Some of it was fine, but I could see the difference, Mary, between writing from a place of addiction and writing from a place of recovery. And so if it was really profoundly different, I left both in the book and just said, I want you to be able to see how someone in addiction or someone who hasn't healed their trauma would write this versus someone who's in recovery. And I also have always believed that long-term recovery requires that mind, body, spirit, and emotional healing. So you just can't go to a meeting, tell your story, and think you're going to stay in recovery. You really need to be working as an integrated system of healing the mind, the body, the spirit, and emotion. And so that's what I do. I monitor each of those and I work on all 4 of them so that I can stay in long-term recovery. It's probably a whole nother topic we can talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like your point about there being one true addiction, and that is suffering.
Yes. And I have never said that, Mary, to anyone who didn't have some sort of reaction to that. It's like a truth that we all know. And
it is.
That's how people are like, yeah, wow. And it is the truth. And that's why any way that you can deal to your listeners, any way that you can really deal with your own trauma, And I'm not recommending any one path because I think they all work. Whatever resonates with you, I think you have to pursue that.
Well, I have to ask the question
Sure.
because I have this overwhelmingly positive sense and vibe from you.
Yes.
And when I think about being a messenger, I think
Mhm.
about sometimes there are messages that we receive that aren't necessarily good. And so,
Yes.
do you hear messages from spiritual beings that are, I don't want to say demonic, but the flip side to God, the Mother, and the Son? And do you hear from them as well?
I do not. I'm not as open to that. In fact, coming back into this, I was asked, I'm also a writing coach. I help people write their books because I love to do that. And I think we all need somebody like that we're accountable for because you know what kind of commitment it takes to write a book.
Sure.
And sometimes we need a coach. And then I was just approached by someone to do that, exactly what you're talking about, to write a book about her her experience with that. And I just say, I'm so sorry. I'm really not, I'm really try to stay in a different vibration. And I really just don't want to spend 6 months in that. So I'm choosing, and I said, but here are some suggestions for you. I made some potential suggestions for her on other coaches that might be open to that. So for me, it's staying in this divine higher vibration is so wonderful that I don't choose. Now, I know that in my private practice, sometimes those type of energies come in because the person who is coming to see me is not open to it, but it's attached to that person. And so then we work on cutting the ties to that energy and energy. I work with Archangel Michael and his sword. And anybody can call on Archangel Michael, borrow his sword, and cut the ties, the negative ties to energies, to people who have negative energies that are influencing you. And so it's not that they're not that they're immediately out of your life. It's just that you are not connected to them energetically. And so they'll do them and you'll do you. And it's a whole, and you just approach them from the vibration that you want to work at. It's like Mel Robbins' new book, Let Them. I don't know if you had a chance. That book is such a phenomenon because what she's saying is let them be them. They are not going to change. You just let them and then let you, which is let them and then let you decide how you're going to react. In my own life, I call it the pause. And so when I feel attacked by someone, even it could be a close loved one, right? Or someone in public, I just pause just to gather myself so that I can react from the highest version of myself, not the version that's been hurt or offended. And I love the pause. It's very disarming.
Powerful.
It's powerful for me,
Yeah.
but it's really disarming for the other person because they're just waiting for you to punch back. If they've given you a verbal punch and you're like, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to think about that. And it's interesting. It's interesting. It really has helped me when I feel people, and it gives them a chance to say, did I really mean that too? Yeah.
How can we give us a step by step? There's someone that I have in mind who is addicted to suffering.
Yeah. Yes.
Addicted
So,
to, and that in kindest and most loving way.
yes.
It is an addiction. And he's been very mired in the negativity and death and dying and all of that. He believes that we all suffer and need to suffer in order
Oh,
to get well. And
yes.
so how do we, for example, call upon Archangel Michael with that sword, because it's one thing to suffer and be
Yes.
addicted to something because you're suffering. It's another thing to be addicted to suffering.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. But really, if based upon what Sophia said, that's what we're all addicted to. But
Right.
some people are better at it than others. And some people keep it internalized. And then they're just out there drinking or watching porn or something. And then other people just are miserable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Sophia said that there were four steps. And so I'd like to share those. So
Sure.
the first thing she said is that pain is inevitable. Even what I spoke about earlier, that we're mind, body, spirit, and emotion, right? We're an integrated system. Somewhere something's going to be off, and it's going to create pain somewhere in our life, which is going to create pain in all of those systems, right? That integrated system. And then there's other people, right? And there's government, and there's, oh my gosh, there's so many different ways that we are going to be hit by pain, and it's inevitable. It's like death and taxes, right? It's
Sure.
coming at us. So the second thing she said is that suffering is an option.
I think it
So
is.
it is an option, because you've seen people who are you can, they're in pain, they're sick, but they're like, hey, how you doing? Come, I'm so glad you came to visit me. Or you have people that you're like, I don't know what's wrong with them, but they're miserable. Right. So they could even just be really wearing their pain on their sleeve. So pain is inevitable, suffering is an option. And it was funny when she said those to me. I said, the Buddha said that. Right. And she said, do you think you're the first person I said that to? So I'm like, probably not. So pain is inevitable, suffering is an option. The next part she said is that surrender is required. You need to be willing, ready, and able to give up that suffering. Surrender is required. So it's not, I really don't want to be miserable anymore. That's not it. It's, I have had enough. I am done. It's when you can say, when it really matters to you, truly matters to you, that you're done suffering, that's surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, so surrender is required, right? When you truly surrender, the last part she said is grace must be allowed. So once you're truly in surrender, Mary, what happens is grace starts coming everywhere. Grace is around us 24 hours a day. Grace is, Sophia said, you can call her Grace, right? That is who she is. That's what she provides to the planet, right? So grace must be allowed. And so that's interesting language, right? Because a lot of people who have been suffering most of their lives in the suffering of addiction don't necessarily believe that they're entitled for grace. They just don't think, that's probably for somebody else, not me, right? Like, why would I get grace? But she's saying that if you truly surrender, the grace of healing will come for you. So what does that look like? Maybe your neighbor says, oh, I found this really interesting program. Maybe you might be interested in it, right? However it comes to you, maybe some miracle shows up, right, in your life, or just everyday content. You're on Facebook and someone posts about how there's a wonderful meeting in their town that they go to, or they've tried something, or they heard this story. And so everybody becomes grace, right? When you're in surrender, because everybody is a messenger. We're all messengers for each other, right? Because we're all part of the divine flow. And so when you are truly in surrender, then the solutions for your life are just going to show up. And you're like, oh, that's so interesting. How come I never knew that? Why? And for me, what Sophia said when this happened for me, remember I said I was in addiction when I first started, when I finally understood my own suffering, what she said to me was, I really don't want to hear you whining about the fact that maybe how come you didn't know earlier? Like, why did you have to suffer for 40 years?
Right.
Because that's what I had to do. I had to be ready at some point to be able to surrender and then to be able to share the information. And it took a lot of healing. I'm not going to say it was a simple process for me. I was in therapy and still am for many years, and very committed to living what I call an examined life, where I looked at all the trauma and I healed those parts of me and let them go. Now, are they still there? Can they still be triggered? Of course. But now it's, oh, look at that. That's upsetting me. It's more like I'm observing that in my life because I know the source. And so healing is not easy, but it's possible.
That is phenomenal. Thank you. Thank you so much, Robin, for being with us today.
You're welcome,
Robin
Mary.
Clare, who is the author of Harmony, The Frequency of True Success, and it is out now and available wherever you get your books.
Yes,
Thank you
for sure.
so much for being with us.
Thank you, Mary. It was a pleasure to be here and to sit with you.
You've been listening and watching Experience Over Expectation. I'm Mary McCorvey. I encourage you to pick up the book, Experience Over Expectation, Let Go of the Plan and Live on Your Terms. And hopefully you'll live in harmony as well when you pick up Robin Clare's book. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful, fantastic day.
You've been listening to Mary McCorvey's Experience Over Expectations podcast. Be sure to subscribe today on YouTube and Substack, or listen wherever you find your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in.